Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure and satisfaction for me to be here for a whole variety of reasons. Number one is that we are having the National Product Conclave, which is being held in Kolkata for the first time, and to see the amount of enthusiasm and the number of people who registered for the conclave and the number of people who have come in for this e-summit really encourages us to believe that the time of entrepreneurship has indeed dawned here. But it's also a pleasure for a very different reason, which many of you may not have suspected. And that is that for me, coming to Kolkata is always like a homecoming, because I studied here, I grew up here, and in fact I graduated from Calcutta. So it's a pleasure to meet all the young boys and girls of the educational system here in Kolkata. But without further ado, let me just take this opportunity to share a few thoughts and perspectives with you with regard to employability, and more particularly with regard to entrepreneurship, because that is the heart of what this whole conclave is all about, and that is, many of us believe, going to be the heart of India's growth and development in the future. For those of you who are in areas related to technology or in the application of this technology in different fields, and who have a creative mindset, I really envy all of you, because there can't be a better time than this for people to be creative and to be innovative, and yet make a big impact on the society around them. A single individual or a small group of individuals can make a big impact through technology, and at the same time they can not only earn a decent living but actually provide employment to a few others as well. And this has happened today, and it is completely different from anything and any condition which existed in the past, because of several things which have happened. None of them were by conscious design necessarily. It just happened, and this is the time when it has all come together. So let me take them up one by one. The first and foremost driver, of course, is technology. And while technological evolution has been a hallmark of the 20th century, and in the 21st century we are talking about information and communication technologies having already become the main driver. Today, information and communication technologies have reached a point where it's called the democratization of technology, meaning that almost anybody can actually develop the technology, extend the technology, and can deploy this technology in a variety of ways. You don't have to be a part of, much less the owner or driver of a very large company like the IBMs and the Microsofts of the past, which were necessary on that size and scale in order to be able to make the impact that they did. But today, thanks to the advancement of technology in terms of things like social media, cloud, mobile technologies, and the advent of broadband, it's possible for just a few people, as little as a handful of people, 3 or 4 people, to really come up with very interesting ideas and thoughts, and actually be able to commercialize that idea, and to bring it from the idea stage to an actual operational service in a very short period of months. That's what has happened as a result of the technological advances today. The second thing is that we are also in a time within the country where a lot of people have already got a little familiar with technology. And it doesn't matter whether the person is educated or not educated, and whether the person is English knowing or speaking or not English speaking. But thanks to the mobile revolution which has spread across the country in the last decade, today we have reached a point where everybody in some way or the other has experienced the power of this technology and the instantaneous nature of the kind of services that it provides. Thirdly, we also have a situation where the government itself has a number of initiatives which are actually driving this faster and forward. Connectivity, apart from the mobile, the broadband connectivity is something which is being pushed. There's a large program for setting up an optical fiber network in the country. And I don't want to go into all the details of all of this, but the short point I want you to think about is, imagine if all the billion people in the country are connected. And imagine that you have the power in your hands to actually be able to connect to them. But remembering that they may not want to connect to you unless you have something to offer, unless you have something which is very useful to them. So if you are able to think of ideas which address some of the problems that we see around us, and there are instances where people have come up with products and services which solve some seemingly mundane problems but which make a huge difference. One entrepreneur came up with the idea of operating an agricultural pump set remotely using the mobile phone. Saves a trip of 2 kilometers to walk to the field, turn it on, turn it off. Maybe if the power is not on, do it twice, thrice a day. Somebody came up with the idea that you can actually, why do you have to every time switch your contact list when you change your mobile device? So they came up with the idea of having a permanent contact list which will remain irrespective of when you change your device. People have come up with ideas in the area of healthcare. Today you have massively online courses. You can study in Stanford while sitting in whatever mohalla you belong to. And the cost of such education is 1/100th of the cost of the conventional system, and the quality is probably 100 times better. So it has completely changed the dynamic and the cost parameters. So the key question is, if you are you have 1 billion people who are connected in the Indian environment, and you look around you and see what these problems are, and think, how do I solve that problem using these new technologies, using these disruptive technologies? And how can I solve the old problem in a completely new way? And that's possible. In almost all the cases, solutions are emerging which completely demolish or knock the bottom out of some existing service. And that's the beauty of these technologies. That's why they are called disruptive. The whole paradigm by which healthcare is delivered, the whole paradigm by which financial services are done. If I want to transfer some money to you, why can't I do it with just my mobile phone? And why can't you receive it with just your mobile phone? These are things which are not in the future, they are already happening in front of us as we speak. So there are a zillion things like this which are possible, but what is missing is this mental approach of looking around you, looking at a problem, applying the knowledge that you have, and especially the understanding of how these technologies work, to find a solution, and to then be able to apply it and commercialize it. This, I think, is the mindset which is today most valued, whether you are an entrepreneur or whether you are an employee. So for those of you who are inclined in that direction, I would suggest that it's certainly a higher goal to pursue this idea, and which you may have, to look at a problem which you are familiar with, to look at a way of solving that problem which you have come up with, and then trying to create a product or a service out of it. Just for your information, earlier this morning in the product conclave, we had suggested that for such people, we need to create an incubation facility which can actually provide them with the physical space to experiment, which can provide them with the finances they need to actually commercialize the idea, and which can provide them various kinds of mentorship and guidance to overcome some of the day-to-day problems of of establishing a company. But at the end of the day, the heart of it is the entrepreneur and that idea and the commercializability of that idea. So I would suggest to you that this is certainly now seen as being more rewarding than seeking the best employment you can get, or even of going to the best possible university, maybe halfway across the world, to study further for another degree. So instead of an employment seeker, you overnight become an employment giver. But most importantly, you have the satisfaction of really solving a problem, being able to make an impact on a large scale, and also being able to make a generous amount of money out of it. If you look at something like WhatsApp, it's something which there's absolutely no reason why it shouldn't have been thought of by somebody sitting here in India. After all, we are the country which invented the missed call system of communicating at zero cost. So being able to send SMSs at zero cost is certainly something which comes very naturally to most of us. So an application like that and a company like that, with only less than 50 people, in a period of less than a couple of years, rises to a valuation of $19 billion. So, and that is precisely because you are able to reach billions of people across the entire world at one shot, thanks to technologies like the cloud and mobility and all of these technologies. So the limitation really is only in this ability to look around with a questioning mind. And I know, especially from my college days in Calcutta, that this comes quite naturally here as well, to question everything, to question authority, to question the current way of doing things. Here's a big opportunity to turn that tendency and that ability to a very, very constructive, productive purpose for you, for the society, and indeed for all of your friends and colleagues as well. One of the things that we have seen is that in a lot of these ventures, a small number of people have come together, a few friends who are bonded by the same thought, who have similar values and ideals, and who are able to make this journey together. Experience shows, statistically speaking, very difficult for one person acting alone to succeed. Experience also shows that it's very difficult for more than 3 people to really make a success of it, because ultimately the realities of human relationships come in the way. So those friendships and bonds that you develop, especially in college, are also a very valuable input into this kind of an effort. So if you can find a group of like-minded people, there's nothing like it. Of course, as far as the employment is concerned, that's another area where NASSCOM has been doing a lot of work, especially because a lot of the industry feels that many of the people who come out from the educational institutions are not really fully employable, at least not all of them. And in part, this is not necessarily because they lack the technical skills, although that is also true of some institutions, but because the combination of technical skills, communication skills, problem solving ability, innovative tendency are not very well developed, and orderly thinking. So a lot of companies invest a lot of money in training people before they come into, before they are actually assigned tasks within the company. So what NASSCOM has done is, in order to resolve this problem, both for the companies and for the individuals, to list out various kinds of jobs or job roles as they are called, and what are the kind of skills that are required. Obviously, if you are in sales, you require one kind of skill. If you are in development, you require a different kind of skill, and so on. And develop for each of these job roles different kinds of skills required, and develop programs to impart these skills. And over a time, we will also develop ways of delivering it through online programs. And for those of you who are interested, you would find a lot of this on the NASSCOM website. And supplementing your formal academic qualification with these skills would certainly enhance your possibilities of employment. But personally for me, as you would have guessed from this talk, if I were in your place and at this particular time in history, then the entrepreneurship is certainly something that you should seriously look at. Fortunately, a lot of people can afford to experiment a little bit. A lot of families do encourage the youngsters to try their hand at it, because A, the affordability has increased, but also because I think the value of this is being recognized. Somebody was telling me that earlier, if somebody was an entrepreneur, his parents would very softly say that, you know, he is doing something on his own. I'm not very sure what it is, but he's trying to do something on his own. It would be almost an apologetic story. But increasingly, thanks to the success and visible successes which are there across the world, in the Indian diaspora and within India, now people stand up proudly and say, yes, he is starting his own tech company. So this is a huge change in our social value system as well. All of these developments today encourage young people like yourselves to tread a path which all of us have been afraid of doing in the past. And I wish you all the best. Whatever you finally decide to do in your life, whether you choose to take up employment or you decide to take the plunge and go in and try to set up your own company, I wish you all the very best. And I do hope that in either of these we would be able to support you, and that some of the work that we are doing as well would actually enable you to realize these opportunities. So thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure to be here with you.